Okay, welcome back. I hope the week gap between our last session didn't leave people too depressed in this letter describing the suffering chassid and the Siva Shalom, the Slonim Rebbe's approach to him. But now we're getting into the messages he does want to share with his chassid. First of all, he tells us something that we have to understand. Da yedidi etzel kol adam ovrim tkufot kashot umarot shchorim mishchor. Everyone has periods in his life that are bitter and blacker than black, darker than dark. She'ino ro'eh b'hem shum nitzotz or, that you can see no spark of light. Unukidat achiza, there's nothing to grasp onto, la'achyot et nafsho, to keep your soul alive. In your imagination, you can see no hope that there's going to be any other existence other than this, or that better times can come. So this, first of all, I'm not taking the approach here of saying, lots of people are going through bad things. Lots of people are going through worse things than what you're going through. I know and you know that really doesn't help so much. But what he's describing is that you must realize this is part of life. This is part of life. This is part of our mission in this world. This is not something that got out of God's control, but this is something which is there and has a purpose. If we think about the greatest people in our nation and we look at them, they suffered. Yaakov Avinu, right? There's that Rashi there that goes through every tzara that Yaakov Avinu went to, from the tzara of Esav, according to the Medrash, trying to kill him into the womb, to the tzaras with Esav later in life, and Dinah and Lavan, and the tzaras of Yosef, tzara after tzara. This is strange because Yaakov Avinu was the chosen one. If people remember back to the Agada that we said not long ago, read the description of how HaKadosh Baruch Hu took Avram and told Yitzchak, chose Yitzchak, and Yitzchak had Yaakov and Esav. Va'etan le'esav is har seir l'reshes oisa. I gave Esav the mountain of Seir to inherit. Nice real estate. V'Yaakov u'bonov. Yaakov and his children, who were chosen to continue the line of Avram Avinu, Yodu Mitzrayim. They went down to Mitzrayim for centuries of slavery and torture. David HaMelech, whose very yichus was called into question, who was rejected by his brothers, who went through any type of suffering that a person can imagine. The rebellions of his sons against him, Adoniyo, Avshalom, having to run into the desert, having to feign insanity, having been pursued by Shaul. Every type of suffering that could be there, David HaMelech is the chosen king, the one who has the line of Mashiach. And so too, if a person reads biographies of the great tzaddikim of Am Yisrael, you will see that so many of our greatest people went through suffering in so many aspects of life. It isn't, and this is meant, first of all, to not take that path, even though there's an idea of doing cheshbon hanefesh when a person is going through suffering, of doing an accounting and trying to improve. Don't blame yourself and say, it's because I'm so bad that these things are happening to me. Don't go into that and therefore say, and therefore there's no way for me to go out because I'm bad and I've been bad. The greatest of the great, the greatest tzaddikim, whose pictures we have up on our walls and whose stories we tell to our children and grandchildren, went through unimaginable suffering. This is a part of life which is there. And sometimes, says the Slonim Rebbe, Yesh nigzar alav lichyos kacha kama shonim. Sometimes the gezerah comes that a person has to live this way for a few years. Again, going over the way he described. A period which is difficult and bitter and darker than dark, in which you can see no spark of light. The truth is, those times are the times that are most able to help a person, in which a person can most fulfill his true purpose in life. As the Rabbi describes here, the way in which you deal with those times is the true test and the true accomplishment of your life. It's counterintuitive. We would often like to prescribe to HaKadosh Baruch Hu what he should do so that we could do the most as a Jew. Give me tons of money, a great family life, good health, and I will be a super Jew. I will do all sorts of things that you would want, right? You could write a fabulous storybook about me. But what HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us is something different. The way in which we keep on in times of adversity. And what we do during times of adversity is oftentimes not something that looks like a storybook at all. It looks minuscule compared to what we would imagine a super Jew should be doing. But that itself is that accomplishment. Rav Wolbe in the Al Yeshur poses an interesting problem that bothered me, I think, before I read it from him. We would like to imagine that our lives would go in a constant upward slope. We start off little and helpless. A baby doesn't have much intellectual ability, doesn't have much physical strength. We grow, we learn more, we do more things, we make connections, we build on our experience, and we imagine we should keep going like that in life until we reach our pinnacle, and our last year of life should be when we are the strongest, the wisest, and we're able to do the most in HaKadosh Baruch Hu's world. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu designed the world that for most people, for many people, as you grow older, the body gets weaker. The mind functions less. And we think, what is the purpose of that? Why should that be? Rav Wolbe says, actually, that is the pinnacle of your life. All of your life, in certain ways, is preparing for how you will deal with that time in life in which, beyond your control, many aspects of your life that you took for granted start to disintegrate. And how a person deals with things at that time is the true pinnacle and the true greatness of a person. So what is a person supposed to do? What is that, if that is that test, and that comes into everyone's life, and there your tikkun can be? So he says what a person has to try to do is to be strong, be brave, be consistent, I would say even to be stubborn. He compares it to a pearl diver. A pearl diver dives down into the murky waters. He has no oxygen. He's fighting because someplace in there in the dark, in some oyster, there's a pearl that's the purpose of that whole dangerous and frightening journey he put himself through. Somehow, by remaining steadfast and continuing on in this time of darkness, a person can achieve that spiritual pearl that's one of his main purposes in life. I heard a very wise thing from an 18-year-old seminary girl that I taught one of the schools that I teach in. She said, I had a question once. We talk about the great simcha of rain. Right? Chazal say, Gadol Yom Geshomim, the day that rains first come, is a tremendous day. We're happy about rain. Why is it then that rain comes with side effects that make us sad or frightened? Rainy days are gloomy and dark. There are people who get depression from that. Thunder and lightning are frightening. Why should that be if rain is a bracha? She said she thinks that Hashem is teaching us with that the most frightening times in life, sometimes the darkest times in life, are actually a source of life and bracha. And we have to learn to search for that. That's the thought.